In May of 2024, they had the International Women's Bowling Congress competition at the Reno Bowling Stadium, which sadly is mostly closed all the time for multiple reasons, one of it being the homeless would get inside and cause problems, but they used to open it for people to come in and bowl, but they've since closed it up. And this museum is no longer here. They're going to be putting in a neon light exhibit, so you can look at the video. I've got two other videos that show this, plus I've got pictures that I'm going to link to the back of the third video if you want to see all this stuff. They have some history of bowling shoes, the history of bowling pins, how bowling balls are made, all sorts of history of the sport of bowling. And then they have pictures of people that were instrumental in starting bowling and the champions. They have the Hall of Champions on the escalators as you come up and down, but in this area they had all the men in the front and the women were on the back walls all around, showing the male and female champions from the beginning of bowling in the 1800s to the 1900s up to present day. So we'll get started here with some of the exhibits as well. The first thing you would see when you came in would be the exhibit of the bowling shoes, which started in 1910 and went up to like 2010. And then directly ahead is the Walk of Champions, and there's little display booths that have information about the bowling. Like they have the different bowling pins, junior bowling, what was called candle pin bowling. Fun for all ages. It used a small bowling ball about the size of an oversized grapefruit, and the bowling pins were only about half that size. They had the bowling pins looked more like tubes instead of the bowling pins, and then they had some champion trophies and awards, mugs and other things. Had some wooden bowling pins, and then the 9-pin top game. They had some different games, trophies, exhibits, mascots, some stuff showing Australia World Championship, different bowling pins, different awards, watches that were given, little pins and belt buckles, all sorts of stuff. They had little bowling balls. They had a scale, and then they had exhibits of the bowling balls showing how they were made on the inside. It wasn't just a giant ball. They actually did some engineering with them to make them do different things, to make them either spin or curve and that type of thing. Pretty interesting exhibit that they had there showing the engineering a bowling ball from the 1960s, 1970s, 1980s, 1990s to now. They were talking about engineering the sport. Showed how the bowling pins were reset, showed the inside of the bowling pins, what were they made of. Different ones were made of different things. The wooden ones had a center piece at the bottom that was opened. It says, just like competitive activity, getting an edge on your opponent is the key to success, and one of the easiest, most effective ways is the equipment on the market. Thus, the bowling materials rapidly evolved over many years across different regions to what is now in use today. The most dramatic engineering evolution in bowling equipment is the bowling ball. For centuries, bowling balls were made of a hardwood called ligum vitae. Starting in 1905, this material changed to rubber. In the 1960s, bowling balls became plastic. In the 80s, urethane was used, and today a variety of urethane and reactive resin balls are used. As 10-pin bowling moved indoors, maple and pine wood became the most common material of choice, and eventually it became standard practice. Oil was originally used on the lanes simply to protect the wood, but now synthetic oil patterns are distributed by programmed lane oiling machines to strategically affect gameplay. Bowling pins have been made by hardwood for centuries, specifically maple. Using maple wood is still highly common, but many centers now use a synthetic plastic-based pins. As equipment advanced, the sports advanced with it. They also had some exhibits about the American Junior Bowling Congress, which started in 1947, went to about 1972, to introduce young kids to the game, boys and girls. They have all sorts of stuff about the different bowling balls, complete handbook of junior bowling, all sorts of interesting information that was there at one time. Showed some different comic strips, Peanuts and Fanfare, and a couple other comic strips, cartoons with Tom and Jerry, and other things. They had the Flintstones, the Peanut. They had some really neat exhibits from the Flintstones, like his granite bowling ball and some other things that were pretty interesting to see. The first 30 years it was called Flintstones. It looked like a giant granite ball with a giant crack in it. They even had history going back thousands of years, the early history of bowling. They had toys, exhibits all over the place. It was a very good exhibit. I mean, hopefully the neon signs will be nice, but it was nice to see the history of bowling and all of this, and I'm glad I took all these pictures and video when I was there, because it was kind of rare. The place opened in 1995, and initially they had a lot of people that were coming there, but then I guess over time it died off. But the early history of bowling said in the 1930s, Sir Francis Flinders Petrie discovered a crude form of bowling in a child's grave in Egypt, which could mean bowling traces its ancestry back 3,200 years. German historian William Peel asserted that bowling began in his country about 300 BC or AD. There's substantial evidence that a form of bowling was in vogue in England in 1366 when King Edward III allegedly outlawed it to keep his troops focused on archery practice, and it is almost certain that bowling was popular during the reign of King Henry VIII. The English, French, and German settlers all imported their own variations of bowling to America, such as English skittles, French quilles de neuf, and German Kegelspiel. The game had its ups and downs in America. An 1841 Connecticut law made it illegal to maintain any 9-pin lanes, probably because bowling was the object of much gambling. But the problem, of course, also evidenced its popularity. While it's uncertain where the leap 10-pin game evolved, by the mid-1800s it was prevalent in many states, such as New York, Ohio, and as far west as Illinois. They also had some exhibits about the American Bowling Congress, the first tournament in Chicago in 1901, 6 alleys and 41 5-men teams. They have booklets on the regular meetings of the American Bowling Congress from 1907 to 1913, history of the American Bowling Congress. It was just a lot of good information. By the late 1800s, details like bowling ball weights and pin dimensions still varied by region and made fair competition difficult, but that changed when restaurateur Joe Thumb finally pulled together representatives of various regional bowling clubs. On September 9th, 1895, at Beethoven Hall in New York City, the American Bowling Congress was born. Soon, standardization would be established and major national competitions could be held. In 1901, the first Open Championships, then called the ABC Championships Tournament, was held in Chicago, Illinois. The tournament has been held continuously except during the years of 1943 to 1945 due to World War II, and is recognized as one of the largest participatory competitions in the world. In addition to the Open Championships, ABC regularly held a variety of tournaments and awarded those with trophies, medals, patches, pins, and certificates, as seen here. Today, the ABC merged with other bowling organizations to become the United States Bowling Congress and continues to maintain league and tournament play throughout the U.S. And then they had an exhibit with some rolls of film showing that 16mm film featuring the first World Series of National Bowling League. They have approximately 1,400 films in the museum's film collection. One copy had been digitized. However, the majority of the collection still needs to be digitized. The mission of the museum's Frame for Frame project is to preserve the rich history of bowling conserved on the deteriorating film collection. And it's too bad that they did away with that exhibit, because that would be something you'd want to have there so people could maybe donate, because they said you can help save these important films by visiting our website at www.bowlingmuseum.com. They also had some exhibits talking about the bowling ball bag where you would put your shoes and the bowling ball and come to the lane, as well as the women's fashion from the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. They had all sorts of nice exhibits here. They also had information about the scorecard system, how it started and how it's evolved. And they had pictures of old bowling lanes and people bowling. A lot of interesting stuff. And then finally, we'll head upstairs to where I think it was 70 plus lanes that they have up there.